Most coaches out there, they spend weeks or sometimes even months trying to find a decent DM setter. They might go in Facebook groups or they might ask a friend or two for referrals for DM setters. They might get 10, 20 applications. They pick the one that they think sounds best in a Loom video. And then 2 weeks in, they wonder why they gotta fire them and why things never work out. We've hired hundreds of DM setters across over 50 accounts, and we've built a system where we can get A-player DM setters ramped up and booking calls within less than 48 hours. And today I'm gonna walk you through the entire process step by step. Where to find them, how to filter the applications, how to vet them on live interviews, and how to structure their first week so you immediately know whether they perform or you have to replace them. Real quick, if you don't know who I am yet, my name is George Nita. I run a company called DMsetting.com. We're the largest done-for-you DM setting management and recruiting company in the entire online info space. For the past 40 years, we've made over $50 million specifically from DM setters for clients like Jeremy Miner, Matt Gray, Dean Graziosi, Samuel Nuha, Alex Fedotov, Rook Triplett, Senna Port, Michael Morelli, and many, many others. And that being said, let's dive in and let's talk about gathering applications and filtering them. So if you're watching this, you probably already have an audience, and because of that, recruiting or getting applications is going to be a lot easier than you probably think it is right now. There's 3 channels that I constantly see are working really well, and that's Instagram stories. So you just make a story saying, hey, I'm looking to hire, this is the role, this is the compensation, apply below. And then you have a Typeform link where they go and apply. More on that later. Second one is referrals. So you just ask people in a network that have already worked with setters, maybe they know setters, maybe they have a bigger network than yourself, and then they can just recommend people to you. You're probably going to get a couple of decent applications. Again, everyone's going to go to a Typeform. More on that in a second. I'll show you how we structure ours. And then the third one, which is really where we recruit a lot of our setters from, is paid sales communities. So you know how there's a lot of like appointment setting, sales training, like phone setting communities out there, or coaching programs, I should say, where people invest multiple 4 figures. The reason I like just going to those programs and recruiting from their existing client base is oftentimes a lot of those people that have invested multiple 4 figures in their education, a lot of those programs are like $3,000 to all the way up to $10,000. So if someone invested that much into like actually learning the skill and then looking to find a job, they're going to be much more qualified than a random person that comes from a Facebook group of like a bunch of VAs. So those are the 3 channels where you can just go in, you can get applications. Now let me show you the actual application form that we have setters go through before we even consider reaching out to them or interviewing them. Okay, so I have our Typeform pulled up here on the screen. This is the exact process that we have our entire pipeline of DM setters go through. We have tens of thousands of people in here right now, and we have a lot of data behind it. And there's a very specific reason why we have each of those questions in here, so we can easily filter people. Chances are, take it with a grain of salt. You might not need to use all those questions yourself, because obviously you're not looking to hire hundreds of DM setters or tens of DM setters every month. But nonetheless, those are a couple of very, very important questions that you need to have, and I'm going to break them down here. All right, so the first one here is their name. Obviously, as you'd imagine, today's date, so we can track when they actually applied, their email, their phone number, in case we want to reach out either by email or phone. We want to have their contact details. From there, I want to see their social media, so IG username, Facebook profile link. We always check this. If they just have a weird social media, then it's like a red flag to begin with. So I really want to make sure someone's organized, they have a nice social media, they can take care of themselves, they're well presented. I feel like those are all important things that matter when you're hiring someone to represent yourself in the DMs, right? You'd want that person to be as presentable as possible. Then we ask where they're based, pretty straightforward. We ask about their time zone, so the time zone that they live in, because if someone says they're in Europe, then obviously they're going to be on a European time zone. It's going to be a little bit harder for them most of the times to work US time zones. So we want to have that flexibility, we want to have that information, so that if someone from Europe says they can work US hours, I want to make sure we go in and we double check and we ask, hey, what makes you actually believe that you're going to be able to stay up until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. your time and respond to messages, and then do it all continuously day after day after day for like 6 to 9 months. That's why we ask this question. Then we ask which time zones can you comfortably work in, again, just to get an idea of their commitment and actually what their availability is. We then ask more specifically about their availability. Are you available full-time or part-time? Anyone that's available part-time, we don't really consider. We don't really hire part-time setters. I don't think we've hired a part-time setter in over a year. Just want people that are fully available, because that's just what we need and what we promise to our clients. The next one here that you might not really have to do unless you have a bilingual offer. So you have, for example, if you're Dutch, you have Dutch leads and then you have English leads. Then it makes sense to add this. You really want to make sure that they actually speak Dutch in this case, or Spanish, or any other language if you operate in a specific national market. If that's not the case, then you don't really need to do this. You can just go ahead and skip it. And now we actually talk about the interesting stuff. So do you have experience in the high ticket space? If someone doesn't have experience, I don't recommend you hire them at all or even consider them. You only want to make sure that you consider an interview and talk to people and reach out to people that actually have experience in the high ticket space. It's here they can select, yes, I have experience, no, I don't. The next question after that is, how long have you been working in the high ticket coaching space? So again, anyone that says they don't have experience, they're not going to see those questions, but it doesn't really matter because you don't want to hire them anyways. So how long have you been working in the high ticket coaching space now? 0 to 6 months, 6 to 1 year, 1 to 2 years, over 2 years. I'm not really a fan of hiring people that are in the early stages of their first 0 to 6 months. I'd much rather get someone that's more established, has at least 6 months of skin in the game, campaign. This also allows us to filter for a little bit more experience, because ultimately you don't really want to hire a setter and it's their first time working with someone else, working with a coach, and then they just kind of like, you are their testing ground or their training ground. You probably don't really want that unless you have an already existing team of established setters. Then you're just kind of taking a shot on someone that you feel could outperform the rest of the team if you see a lot of potential in that specific person. Next one that I like asking is, do you have experience in just one role, or do you have experience in a couple of different roles? So you're going to get people that have worked as a DM setter, phone setter, and closer, or maybe just 2 out of the 3, or maybe just 1 out of the 3. So it's always good to know. Obviously, when you're hiring for DM setters, you want to hire people with DM setting experience. If someone comes to you and applies for a DM setter job, but then they only have phone setting and closing experience, I wouldn't really consider them, because those are 2 very different things with very different methodologies and strategies than DM setting. It's going to take a longer time for them to get ramped up and actually understand the thing, if they will understand it to begin with, because oftentimes they're just so used to the other processes and other methodologies of phone setting and closing. Next one is one of the most important questions that we have, which is how much have you been able to generate for the companies that you worked with so far? So 0 to 100, 1 to 500, 500 to 750, 750 to a mil plus. I wouldn't really recommend hiring anyone that made less than 100K in their career as a DM setter, because if they've been around for like over 6 months, which is ideal, I just said that, and they've made less than 100K, then that basically means they're making, or they've made the clients they worked with up until that point less than 20 to 30K a month. Probably not the best person that you want to have in your company. So you really want to look for people that made over 100K, ideally 2, 3, 4, 500, so over $500,000. Even sometimes you're going to get people with over $1 million. Those are really, really good candidates that actually have a lot of experience under their belt, and they can just come in and you're going to have a much easier time ramping them up. But they're harder to find and harder to get and harder to convince them to work on your offer unless you have a really good earning potential. Now, once we establish all of the number stuff in here, the next question that we ask is we ask them to give us a breakdown, like a step-by-step specific breakdown of their experience in the companies they work with. I want to make sure this is verifiable, right? I want to see the company name, so what company did you work with and for how long, and then what were the results you produced during your time there for each individual company. This is going to be very important for you as well, because it's going to allow you to see if someone's been around and has been doing this stuff for over 2 years or over 1 year, for example, 1 to 2 years, then they worked for 12 different companies. That kind of raises a bit of a red flag. It's like, dude, you can't stay more than 2 months with a single company, and then I'm not really the best. You might actually dodge a bullet once you actually have that information. It doesn't happen too often, but you want to make sure you're prepared for it. Again, all of this is added friction to make the hiring process for you easier and to make it easier for yourself to spot the right people. And then when you interview them and when you get them onboarded, to have the highest likelihood of them succeeding and actually staying with your company long term and generating really good results long term. Then we ask if they've been through any appointment setting or sales coaching programs before, more so just to see if they invested in their education before. So we ask them here, hey, please tell us about the programs you were part of, how much you invested, and if you're still active or graduated from the program. Again, this goes hand in hand because we recruit from a lot of those sales communities, because I'm really a fan of people that invest $4, $5, $6, $7,000 in education and then they go look for a job. They're that much more hungry and that much more committed. So whenever people drop multiple 4 figures on sales communities or they've been through multiple different trainings, it's always a green flag. Then we ask more of a general question. I just kind of want to see how they articulate themselves here. What about the DM appointment setter role interests you? And what we find here is a lot of people are just going to go to ChatGPT and are going to put in this question, and then they're just going to spit out an AI response, and we can instantly tell, and you're going to be able to tell as well. And a lot of those people, they get negative points. I'm not a fan of someone that sees a question on an interview for on a job form and then they just outsources their answers to AI. I want to see them think in real time, because that's what they're going to have to do in DMs. So setters think they're crushing it when they put a long ass copy pasted ChatGPT message in here, but the reality is, like, we're not stupid and you're not stupid either, so you're going to be able to spot it, and it's a red flag, right? They're diminishing their chances of actually getting hired. So please be wary of this. It's kind of a double-edged sword here. I want to see them articulate and think, and oftentimes they're going to use AI and then we can spot it and it's a red flag, right? So pay attention to this one. It's an interesting one, because obviously the intention of it is to see how well they articulate their thoughts, but oftentimes they use AI, which tells me they outsource their thinking to AI, which I'm not a big fan of when it comes to human like interaction roles that they're going to have to do over the DMs. And it's just going to give you a hint about their attention to detail and the quality of work that they're going to perform for you. Because if you're going to hire someone whose entire job and life and compensation depends on speaking and sounding exactly like you in the DMs, and that person outsources answers like this to AI, then you probably don't want to hire them. Then we have them rate their communication skills. To be honest, we don't really look much at this. Everyone puts 5 stars. I don't even know why we keep this question here on the form. I guess we've always had it, so we just never took it out. Again, I want to see them articulate here this next question, which is, why do you think it'd be a good DM appointment setter? Same thing here. We can very easily tell if they outsource their answers to AI, which again, I'm not a fan of. It's a red flag in our book. Sometimes with like really good qualified candidates with really good experience, we're still going to reach out to them, get them on an interview, and then talk to them face to face, because obviously at that point they can't use AI to outsource their thinking or their words, and then we can really see how they perform under a little bit of pressure on an interview, which is what we're going to cover here in a second. And then last but not least, the last question here, if we were to select you to work with one of our 6 to 7 figure clients, how soon could you get started? And there's a couple of options here: immediately, next week, 2 weeks, 1 month. This is going to let you know how available they are and how committed they actually are. Because if someone's really committed to get a job, oftentimes you're going to say like immediately or next week if they apply on like a Thursday or Friday. And then people that are less committed, especially the part-timers or people that like don't really have a lot of experience or are just kind of like shopping around, I'm going to say 2 weeks, 1 month. So again, if they say this, a little bit of a red flag, not really interested in them. If they say this, then this, it means they're likely more committed than the other 2 options here. Oh, and there's actually one more super important thing that we do here, which is the introduction videos. We have them record a 1-minute video where they introduce themselves, talk about their experience, they talk about what makes them a good fit to work with our clients, and then we also ask what are their strongest character traits, and we make it very clear to them that if they don't submit this video application, they're not going to get reviewed. There's no way we would ever consider them without a video application. So you should do the same thing. You really want to see those people perform on camera, because if they're incredibly shy or they just struggle articulating their words to the camera, there's a very high likelihood they're not going to be as proactive and as dynamic as you want them to be in your DMs. So again, it just helps in your decision-making process. This is probably one of the most important steps here that tells you a lot about a person without you having to reach out and set a call and get them on an interview and spend 30 minutes just trying to like go back and forth with them. This saves you so much time because it's a 2-minute video oftentimes, and you can really tell whether the application matches the video or vice versa, and then you can make your decision of whether you actually want to interview that person or not. And that's it. That's the type form. You can pause here on the screen. You can just copy all those questions yourself. It's going to make your life easier when you're looking to hire your next setter because it adds a lot of friction. And again, because of all the questions and the thought process behind them that I just explained here, you're going to have a much easier time spotting the right people and then actually getting them on an interview and onboarded into your company. So this application / filtering process that I just showed you is going to save you a lot of time and headache from dealing with the wrong people, talking to them, onboarding them, all that stuff. But if you don't want to deal with any of it yourself, that's exactly what we do over at dmsetting.com. We have a database of thousands of vetted and ready to go DM setters. So if you want to find out more about that, click the first link in the description. Now, what you want to do is you want to get a short list of people. So what I would recommend here is just gather around 20 to 25 applications. And then from there, based on the criteria that we just talked about and using your own requirements and criteria and obviously your own rationale here and your own judgment of those applications, you want to shortlist them down to about 5 to 8 candidates that you think are going to be a good fit. And once you have this batch of 5 to 8 candidates that you think would be a solid fit, you want to interview them live, because most people skip this part and later they end up regretting it when they realize they just hired the wrong person because they didn't actually see that person perform live and they didn't even take 30 minutes or 40 minutes of their time to actually meet the person and make sure that they're going to be qualified, so they're not going to have to go through the same process 2 or 3 weeks down the line. So what you do here is you're obviously not going to do one-on-one interviews with all of them, because if you got 8 people on a 30-minute interview, each of them, that's going to be 4 hours. You probably don't have that time, and even if you do, you probably don't want to spend it talking to like 8 different DM setters back to back for 4 hours straight. So what you do here is you run a group interview. You set a time, Wednesday, 12 p.m., 1 p.m., whatever it is. You message every single one of them like, hey man, saw your application, loved your work or your past experience. I think there's something that we can work with here. This might be a fit. I'm hosting a group interview Wednesday at 1 p.m. What's your email? I'll shoot you over an invite. And the idea here is to get all of them present on the group interview so you can just interview all of them at once. Now there's really 4 steps to running this group interview. I'm going to break them down quickly. So the first one is just set the non-negotiable. So hey guys, those are the working hours. This is what I'm looking for. This is the activity that I'm looking for. Anyone that cannot do this, please hop off the call right away. So whatever your non-negotiables are, just list them in the first 5 minutes, because it's just going to save you time. And you might oftentimes get 1 or 2 people just dropping off and leaving. And again, that saves you time and it saves the rest of the people that are present or the rest of the candidates that are present. It saves them time as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you want to give them an offer overview. So you want to tell them what your offer is about, what your company is about, a little bit more details. Don't expect someone to be interested, especially someone that's really qualified. Don't expect them to be incredibly interested in working for you if they don't know a lot about your company. So you want to make sure you take the first couple of minutes after you've done the non-negotiables to present your company, present the offer, present the earning potential. If you've had DM setters in the past, tell them about how much they made, obviously if they performed really well, and really just give them a good overview of what your company stands for and what your company does. Because what this is going to do is it's going to create buy-in from the right candidates. The third thing that you do is you have your questions that you want to ask them. We do about 6 questions for every single person, and then the way you do it is you have question 1, you ask all of them, and then question 2, you ask all of them, question 3, you ask all of them. You take notes while you're doing this. Now for the questions, the first one that we ask is a 60-second background of their experience and results. Anyone that rambles on for too long, we just cut them off. We don't want to deal with ramblers, or we don't want to deal with people that talk too much. We just want people that are short and concise and understand what 60-second means. And when they do that, it also tells me that they're aware of the surroundings of the circumstances that they're in. The second question is, what results did you actually produce there? So did you do outbound? Did you do inbound? Did you do both? What was your average bookings a day? What were your leads coming from? What was the price point of the offer? How much revenue did you produce for that specific offer? How long were you with each pitch these offers. And what this does, especially the first couple of questions here, it tells you whether they know their numbers or not. And if you get people that don't know their numbers, to me it's a no-go. You have no attention to detail. I don't really want to hire you, and I just don't want you to be around. Like, what we do should be the same for you. Really want people that like actually understand numbers and they can own up their numbers and they pay attention to their numbers and their performance. Next one here that we ask is how they organize their pipeline of leads on the previous offers that they were working with. What this does is if someone doesn't really know how to answer this question, then that tells me they don't really pay a lot of attention to their pipeline, so they're probably losing money or they've lost money that they otherwise could have made for the previous companies that they worked with. So I don't really want to consider them that much. Obviously, if I'm giving you leads and you're not going to take proper care of them and you don't know how to keep your own pipeline and how to handle those leads and stay on top of them, to me, that's a red flag. It should be to you as well. Next question that we ask is long term. Let's say you get to $6,000 to $8,000 to $10,000 a month in commissions here over the next 6 months. What's next for you at that point? Anyone that says, oh, I want to be a closer, or I want to start my own business, or I used to run an agency in the past and I want to run it again. I'm not a fan of that. I'm looking for long-term commitment. Everyone that I hire, I want them to commit to being a DM setter for 9 to 12 months minimum. And anyone that says, oh, I just want this position to kind of rebuild my cash reserves at the end of this, it's like, dude, I'm not going to hire you right now so you can churn in 4 months after you make 20 grand and do your like little agency. It's like, that's not how it works. It's again, really good question. Highly recommend you do it as well. Next one that we ask here is we double check their hours and availability. And after that, we ask them 2 more questions, which is what is your why? So what motivates you on a day-to-day basis? Why do you actually want to do this? This gives those people an opportunity to open up a little bit on a personal level and just share with us what's actually the driving force behind their actions. And last but not least, we ask them about their weaknesses, so where they would have some room to improve. And what this does, if someone says, oh, I have no weaknesses, I'm perfect in all like different areas, or I can't think of anything, that tells me they don't really have a lot of self-awareness, which I'm not a fan of. That's it. Those are all the questions that we ask on the actual group interview. Feel free to pick and choose whichever ones you feel are going to be most relevant to you. And then number 4, last but not least, what you're going to do on the group interview is you give them a couple of minutes at the end. You give them the chance to ask you questions. So it's just an open Q&A after you finished all of your questions and you just went around the room and asked everyone all of the questions and everyone responded. Then you just give them a couple of minutes to ask you a couple more questions about the offer. Maybe they have some number specific questions or some process specific questions that you can answer for them. Then you just wrap it up at that. Typically this shouldn't take you more than 60 minutes. Now during the group interview, you're just going to listen, you're just going to observe. But once it's done, what you're going to do is you're going to pick your winner and you're going to pick your second best. And you're going to hire both of them at the same time and you're going to have them compete against each other. Now also what you want to do is you want to create a little bit of a bench in case one of those 2 people that you just hired is going to drop off. So the way you do it is you take the 3rd and the 4th strongest ones and you tell them, hey, I'm putting you on the bench for now. I'm going to give you a decision within the next 7 to 10 days. And what this is going to allow you to do is it sets the right expectation with the person that they're not going to get hired right away. And it also leaves an open door for you in case one of the 2 that you just hired doesn't work out. You have someone that you can immediately plug in and replace so you don't really have dead time in your inbox. Now there's a couple of metrics here during the trial period and really at any given time that you want to track for your DM setters. I'm not going to go too in depth because I have other videos on the channel breaking down those metrics at length, but those metrics are outbound messages sent, outbound responses, inbound conversations, follow-ups, calls proposed, links sent, total calls booked, qualified calls booked, and obviously you want to see deals closed, revenue generated, the cash collected, all that good stuff. So those are the metrics that you want to make sure you're tracking or the setters are reporting to you on a daily basis during the trial period. And once you have 7 days of data from both of the setters, what you're going to do is you're going to draw the line, you're going to sum them all up, and you're going to see who booked more calls, who closed more deals, who generated more revenue, who has better conversion metrics from like lead to call booking ratio. And then you're just going to make your decision based on those numbers and you're going to keep that winner. I'm always a fan of having a minimum of 2 people at all times fighting for one position. So if you wanted to hire 2 setters and have 2 setters active at all times, I would at least bare minimum want to have 3 people fighting for that, ideally 4 people fighting for that position, again with the same process that I just explained here. And then if someone drops during the trial period, something happens, offer doesn't work out, they're not really as good as you thought they would be, then you have the bench, you have another at least 1 or 2 people on the bench, so you can just let that person go and replace them immediately with someone from the bench, and you can keep running the same test for 7 days. So once you pick a setter, there's a couple of things they need to know before they actually get started in the DMs. And what I recommend here is you just have 2 30-minute calls or just 1 60-minute call with them where you break down 2 things. Number 1 is you just kind of break down the niche, the industry, the competitors, the avatar, and the problems that you're solving through your program or to your offer. And number 2, the second thing that you do, which a lot of people overlook, but I find really important, and at least least it was incredibly helpful for me many years ago when I was a DM setter myself, is you walk them through the program. Like, how does the program actually take someone from A to Z? How do you deliver on your promise? Because what this is going to do is going to do two things. Number one is going to give them conviction that your thing actually works. So when someone has conviction, they're more likely to actually good work for you. But number two, leads are going to have questions about your program and about your process and about your methodologies, unique mechanism. And if the setter doesn't know anything about that, if they don't know anything about the program and how it works and how it gets people results, then they're just going to be stuck at that stage in the conversation. They're not going to be able to advance the conversation and turn that prospect into a booked call and then into a deal closed. Now, I would say those two things matter significantly more than giving a script and having them copy paste or memorize a script. Don't really pay too much attention to that. Again, there's videos on the channel if you want to see our scripting / our frameworks. There's plenty of videos that I made on that. Don't think about it too much. What matters more, especially when you have the right person on board, is them understanding the niche that they're operating in and the pain points of your client avatar, and then also your deliverables and how you actually get that specific avatar from point A to point B. Now, next thing here is reporting. I just mentioned it a couple of minutes ago with all of the different metrics that you want to track. So make sure you have that set up. The way we do it is we do it in Slack. We have an end of day channel. Setters just submit those numbers either through Google form or just send them manually in there at the end of their working days, so we can just track and see the daily performance of their numbers. And then last but not least, before they get started in the DMs, you want to be clear on expectations and compensation. So what this means when it comes to expectations is you want to have clear targets from day one. So like, what are the actual KPIs that they need to hit on a daily basis, including the trial period and after the trial period, if they make it through the trial period. You want to be abundantly clear on that from day one, because if you're not, if you don't have clarity on the KPIs, or you don't know what the KPIs should be, then your decision, instead of being based on numbers and rationale, is going to be based on emotion of whether you actually like the person or not, instead of it being based on numbers and letting the numbers kind of speak and dictate your decision here. And the second thing here is the compensation structure. So what I recommend here is, if you're below 100K a month, add in a small base pay. I think it helps so much with stability. A lot of times those people are looking for some sort of cushion. They're looking for some sort of stability. This is exactly what that does for them. It just kind of makes them not worry about how they're going to put food on the table. It actually gets them focused on making you money. So what I recommend here is anywhere in the range of $800 to $1,000. That's always what I recommend people. Then obviously you have your commission, which is the industry average of 5%. That's always what I recommend people. That's what all of our DM setters, over 70 DM setters that we have right now, that's what they get paid, 5%. And if you're doing more than 100K a month, then you're more established, you're less volatile, so you can just get away with no base pay and just keep it at commission only. Again, same 5%. Those are just my 2 cents and what I recommend here. I always tell people there's no right or wrong. Don't take my word for granted. If you want to come up with a different comp plan, as long as those people are going to be able to make a couple $1,000s a month, it's really all they're looking for. So whatever way you want to go, as long as you can provide that opportunity for them, chances are you're going to be able to attract good talent. So that's the full process. That's how you go from no DM setter to having a DM setter hired and onboarded, typically if you move fast enough in less than 48 hours. But here's the thing, every single piece needs to be in place, because otherwise you're just going to go through the same cycle of churning and burning through setters and having to replace them every 2 to 3 weeks. And if you're watching this and you're thinking that this is a lot to manage by yourself or even by someone from your team, then that's exactly what we do over at dmsetting.com. We recruit from a database of thousands of vetted setters that are ready to go. We onboard them, we ramp them up, we train them daily, we replace them when we have to, and then we manage them constantly to make sure that they're bringing in money for your company and that money is actually growing month over month. And we do all of this so you don't have to. So if you're interested in delegating this process to us, click the first link in the description. You're going to be able to book a call with me and I'll walk you through how everything works.